Hi everyone! Today, we're going to talk about something very important, especially for those who have diabetes or know someone who does. Have you ever wondered what could happen if your blood sugar gets too low or too high? Well, diabetes is no joke and requires special care. But don't worry, I'm going to explain everything clearly, in a way that's easy to understand, like we're just having a chat. Did you know that our bodies need sugar, or glucose, to function properly? It's like the fuel that makes a car run. But sometimes, this fuel can be too much or too little, and that's when problems start. When this happens, our bodies can send out various signals that something's not right. If we can recognize these signals and act quickly, we can avoid some very serious situations. Diabetes is a condition that affects how the body uses blood sugar. When everything is working well, our bodies can keep blood sugar levels balanced. Not too high, not too low. But for people with diabetes, maintaining this balance can be more challenging. This is where diabetes emergencies come in, situations where blood sugar levels get out of control and can cause serious problems. Imagine your body as a factory that needs energy to work. This energy comes from sugar, which is delivered to your cells by your blood. When sugar levels are just right, the factory works well. But sometimes, the factory can run out of fuel or have too much of it. When blood sugar is too low or too high, the factory stops functioning properly, and this can be dangerous. Throughout this text, I'll explain 6 emergencies that can happen to someone with diabetes. I'll tell you how to recognize each one, what to do to help someone going through it, and most importantly, how to prevent these emergencies from happening. Don't worry if some of the terms seem complicated. I'll use everyday examples so you can fully understand what's going on in your body or the body of someone you love. For example, have you heard of hypoglycemia? This big and complicated word simply means when your blood sugar level is too low. And what happens when sugar is too low? The body starts to feel weak, it trembles, and if not treated quickly, the person might even pass out. And if sugar is too high, what happens? That can be even more dangerous, because the body might go into a state of diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a very serious emergency. But don't worry. There's no need to be scared. The goal of this text is to help you understand how these situations occur and what you can do to prevent them from getting to that point. And if one day you or someone you know experiences one of these emergencies, you'll know exactly what to do to help. So, shall we embark on this learning journey together? I'll explain everything in a very simple way. By the end, you'll be much more prepared to deal with diabetes and maybe even help others with this knowledge. Before we proceed with the first emergency, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, as the upcoming videos will feature a series of content that will help you improve your health. First emergency. Hypoglycemia. When blood sugar gets too low. Now that you know a bit about how the body uses sugar to function, let's talk about one of the most common emergencies for people with diabetes. Hypoglycemia. This complicated word simply means that your blood sugar is too low. But why does this happen, and what should you do if someone is experiencing hypoglycemia? Let's find out together. Imagine blood sugar as the energy you need to play, run, or study. If you don't eat properly or do a lot of physical activity without eating, you might start to feel weak, dizzy, and even confused. This happens because your body doesn't have enough sugar to keep functioning well. Hypoglycemia is exactly that. The sugar level drops so low that the body starts sending out urgent signals for help. The signs of hypoglycemia can appear suddenly. It might start with intense hunger, like you haven't eaten all day. Then, you might start to sweat even if it's not hot. Your heart might beat faster, and you might feel your hands or legs trembling. These are clear signs that your body is crying out for help because your blood sugar is too low. So, what should you do in this situation? The first thing is to act fast. When someone is experiencing hypoglycemia, it's important to give them something sweet to eat or drink, like fruit juice, a piece of candy, or a sweet. This will help raise the blood sugar level and make the person feel better quickly. But be careful. It's important that the person consume something that can be absorbed quickly, meaning something the body can turn into energy almost immediately. After eating or drinking something sweet, it's a good idea to wait a few minutes to see if the symptoms improve. If the person still feels unwell, it's important to eat a little more or seek medical help, especially if the symptoms are very intense. Sometimes, hypoglycemia can be so severe that the person might even faint or have a seizure. In this case, it's crucial to call an ambulance or take the person to the hospital as quickly as possible. But why does hypoglycemia happen? There are several reasons. It could be because the person took more insulin than needed, didn't eat properly, or did too much physical exercise without preparing beforehand. It can also happen if the person is sick or taking medications that affect blood sugar levels. That's why people with diabetes need to watch out for these factors and always be prepared to act quickly if hypoglycemia occurs. And how can you prevent hypoglycemia? The best way is to maintain a balanced and regular eating routine, take medications or insulin at the right doses, and avoid intense physical exercise without eating first. For people with diabetes, it's always a good idea to carry a sweet snack, like a cereal bar or fruit, in case you start to feel the first signs of hypoglycemia. Oh, and one more important thing. Always inform the people around you, like friends, classmates, or coworkers, about what hypoglycemia is and what to do if you need help. That way, everyone will be more prepared and can help you if you need it. Now that you know everything about hypoglycemia, we're going to continue talking about other diabetes-related emergencies. I'll explain what happens when blood sugar gets too high, something that can also be very dangerous. Let's learn together how to keep the body working properly, without any scares. Second emergency. Hyperglycemia, when blood sugar gets too high. Now that we understand what happens when blood sugar gets too low, let's talk about the other side of the coin, hyperglycemia. This is the term used when the blood sugar level is too high. And just like hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia can also cause a lot of problems if it's not treated. So, let's explore what this means and how to handle the situation. First, let's remember that blood sugar, also known as glucose, is the body's main fuel. It comes from the foods we eat, especially carbohydrates like bread, rice, and fruits. After eating, sugar goes into the blood and is carried to the cells, which use this energy to perform all the functions that keep the body running. For this to happen properly, insulin, a hormone produced by the pancreas, needs to be present. It acts like a key that opens the doors of the cells to let the sugar in. But what happens if the body doesn't have enough insulin or if the cells don't respond well to insulin? The sugar ends up staying in the blood, accumulating more and more. This is hyperglycemia, when the glucose level in the blood rises above normal. And why is this dangerous? Because the body can't function properly with so much sugar in the blood, and this can cause damage to various parts of the body, like the eyes, kidneys, nerves, and even the heart. The symptoms of hyperglycemia can develop gradually, unlike hypoglycemia, which appears suddenly. You might start to feel very thirsty, even if you're drinking plenty of water. Another sign is frequent urination because the body tries to get rid of the excess sugar through urine. And do you know how you might still feel hungry even after eating a lot? This can also be a sign of hyperglycemia because the cells aren't getting the sugar they need. Additionally, you might start feeling very tired, experience blurred vision, and sometimes even have a persistent headache. If hyperglycemia is not treated, it can lead to more serious complications, such as diabetic ketoacidosis, a medical emergency that can be life-threatening. But don't worry, we'll discuss that in more detail soon. So, what should you do when blood sugar levels are too high? The first step is to check your blood sugar. People with diabetes usually have a special device, a glucose meter, which allows them to quickly check their blood glucose levels. If the glucose level is high, it may be necessary to take more insulin, as advised by your doctor. Drinking plenty of water also helps because the body will use urine to try to eliminate the excess sugar. Another important thing is to avoid eating more carbohydrates until blood glucose returns to normal. But be cautious. Never take extra insulin or make changes to your treatment without consulting your doctor first. Each person with diabetes is different, and what works for one might not be the best solution for another. Your doctor will guide you on the safest way to manage hyperglycemia. And how can you prevent hyperglycemia? The best way is to maintain a healthy diet, take your medications or insulin exactly as prescribed, and exercise regularly. It's also important to monitor your blood glucose frequently to see how your body is responding to food, insulin, and lifestyle. If you notice that blood sugar levels are rising too much, it's time to adjust something in your daily routine. Finally, remember, if you're experiencing hyperglycemia, don't panic. It's a serious situation, but it can be managed with the right care. And if you feel that symptoms are worsening, such as nausea, vomiting, or abdominal pain, seek medical help immediately, as this could be a sign of diabetic ketoacidosis, which is an emergency. Did you know how to identify when blood sugar is high? Share with us in the comments. Third emergency. Diabetic ketoacidosis. The highest alert. We've reached a very important point in our discussion about diabetes. Diabetic ketoacidosis. This complicated-sounding term might seem daunting, but it's crucial to understand what it means because ketoacidosis is one of the most severe complications that can occur when diabetes is not well managed. Recognizing the signs of this condition can be life-saving. First, let's quickly recap what happens when blood sugar levels are too high, which is called hyperglycemia. As we know, the body needs insulin to help glucose enter the cells and be used for energy. But if there's not enough insulin, or if the cells can't use insulin properly, the sugar remains circulating in the blood instead of going into the cells. Now, what happens when the body's cells can't receive the necessary glucose? They start looking for another energy source. This is when the body begins to break down stored fat to try to obtain energy. However, this process produces substances called ketones. When these ketones accumulate in the blood, it can become very acidic, which is extremely dangerous. This condition is known as diabetic ketoacidosis. The symptoms of diabetic ketoacidosis can develop quickly, sometimes within just a few hours. They are quite different from the symptoms of simple hyperglycemia. A person with ketoacidosis might experience an insatiable thirst because the body is trying to dilute the excess sugar in the blood. Additionally, they may urinate frequently. Other signs include nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. The person's breathing may become rapid and deep, and their breath might have a distinct odor, like overripe fruit or nail polish remover. As ketoacidosis worsens, the person may start to feel extreme weakness, have difficulty breathing, and experience confusion. If left untreated, they could even lose consciousness and fall into a coma. That's why diabetic ketoacidosis is considered a medical emergency. If you or someone you know with diabetes shows these symptoms, it is essential to seek medical help immediately. You might be wondering, why does ketoacidosis happen? It can occur for several reasons, but the most common include forgetting to take insulin, an infection that disrupts diabetes control, or even severe physical or emotional stress. These situations can cause the body to need more insulin than usual, and if it doesn't get the extra insulin, ketoacidosis can develop. So, how can you prevent this dangerous situation? The best way to prevent diabetic ketoacidosis is to maintain strict control over diabetes. This means taking insulin or medications exactly as prescribed by the doctor, regularly monitoring blood glucose levels, and following a balanced diet. If you're ill or under a lot of stress, it's even more important to keep an eye on your glucose and ketone levels and adjust your insulin dose according to your doctor's instructions. Another important tip is to be familiar with your body. If you notice excessive thirst, frequent urination, or feel very tired or nauseous, don't ignore these signs. Checking your blood glucose immediately can prevent the situation from worsening. And if the glucose level is very high, don't hesitate to seek help. For those who live with someone with diabetes, it's important to be aware of the signs of diabetic ketoacidosis and know how to respond in an emergency. Recognizing the symptoms and understanding the seriousness of the situation can make all the difference. So, now that we know more about diabetic ketoacidosis, the next step is to learn about another condition that, while less urgent, also requires attention. Hyperosmolar hyperglycemic syndrome, which also involves very high blood sugar levels but in a somewhat different way. Fourth emergency. Hyperosmolar hyperglycemic syndrome, when glucose goes too high. In the last section, we discussed diabetic ketoacidosis, a serious complication that can occur in people with diabetes. Now, let's talk about another very dangerous condition, hyperosmolar hyperglycemic syndrome, HHS. The name is long and seems complicated, but don't worry, we'll break it down in a simple way. Hyperosmolar hyperglycemic syndrome is a medical emergency, just like ketoacidosis, but it happens somewhat differently. In the case of HHS, blood sugar levels become extremely high, much higher than in ketoacidosis, but without producing ketones that make the blood acidic. So, how does this happen? Imagine that for some reason, glucose in the blood starts rising and rising, and the body can't use this glucose because it either lacks enough insulin or the cells aren't responding properly to insulin. The sugar accumulates in the blood, but unlike in ketoacidosis, the body doesn't break down fat to try to get energy, so ketones don't form. Instead, the blood becomes extremely concentrated, almost thick, because there's a lot of sugar and very little water. That's why HHS is called hyperosmolar, meaning the blood is more concentrated than normal. The symptoms of HHS can develop more slowly than those of ketoacidosis, but when they appear, they can be quite intense. A person with HHS might experience insatiable thirst because the body is trying to dilute the excess sugar in the blood. They will also urinate frequently, causing the body to lose a lot of water and become dehydrated. Over time, this dehydration can become very severe, leading to extreme weakness, mental confusion, drowsiness, and even seizures. If HHS is not treated promptly, the person could fall into a coma, and the condition can be fatal. That's why it's crucial to seek medical help immediately if you notice the signs of this syndrome. You might be wondering, why does HHS happen? This condition is more common in older people with type 2 diabetes, especially those who have another illness or infection that disrupts diabetes control. Sometimes, HHS can be triggered by medications that increase blood sugar levels or even by a lack of fluid intake. Preventing HHS, like preventing ketoacidosis, involves maintaining strict control over diabetes. This means regularly monitoring blood glucose levels, taking medications as prescribed, and maintaining a healthy, balanced diet. It's also important to drink plenty of water, especially if you're ill or taking medications that could raise blood sugar levels. Another crucial point is recognizing signs of dehydration and acting quickly if you notice symptoms like intense thirst, dry mouth, dry skin, dizziness, or weakness. If you measure your blood glucose and it's very high, seek medical help immediately. Just like with ketoacidosis, family and friends of people with diabetes should also be aware of the signs of HHS. Recognizing the symptoms and knowing how to respond in an emergency can be vital. Now that we have a better understanding of hyperosmolar hyperglycemic syndrome, we'll continue learning about diabetes complications. Next, we'll explore diabetic foot, a condition that can affect people with diabetes and requires special care. Before we move on, I noticed you haven't liked this video yet. If you're enjoying the content and want to see more videos like this, please like the channel. Your like is very important to us and helps us keep bringing the best content to you. Fifth emergency. Diabetic foot, when diabetes affects the feet. Let's understand a complication that affects many people with diabetes and can cause serious problems if not treated properly. Diabetic foot. You've probably heard that our feet are the foundation of our body, right? They support us, take us from one place to another, and help us maintain balance. But for people with diabetes, feet can become a source of concern. This is because diabetes, when not well controlled, can cause damage to nerves and blood circulation, directly affecting the health of the feet. Let's start by talking about diabetic neuropathy. This is a complicated term, but the concept is simple. It's when the nerves in the body, especially in the feet, get damaged due to high blood sugar levels. When this happens, a person may start to lose sensation in their feet. Imagine not feeling if you stepped on something sharp or got injured. This can be dangerous because minor wounds might go unnoticed, and if not treated, they can turn into serious ulcers. Here's another issue: poor circulation. Diabetes can also damage blood vessels, making it harder for oxygen-rich blood to reach the extremities, like the feet. Without enough blood, the skin and tissues in the feet don't heal well. A small cut or blister can turn into an ulcer, an open wound that takes a long time to heal. Now, imagine a person with diabetes who, due to neuropathy, doesn't feel a wound on their foot. This wound, because of poor circulation, doesn't heal as it should. If left untreated, it can become infected. And an infection in the feet can spread rapidly and cause very serious problems, such as gangrene, where the tissue dies due to a lack of blood. Unfortunately, in severe cases, amputation of the foot or leg might be necessary to save the person's life. But don't worry, it's not all about concerns. There are many ways to prevent diabetic foot and keep your feet healthy, even with diabetes. The most important thing is to take good care of your feet every day. This means washing and drying them thoroughly, especially between the toes, to prevent moisture buildup that can cause infections. It's also essential to moisturize the skin, but avoid applying cream between the toes to prevent excessive moisture. Another important tip is to always inspect your feet. It might seem simple, but this practice can make a huge difference. Look at your feet every day, preferably in a well-lit area. Check for cuts, blisters, spots, or anything unusual. If you have trouble seeing the soles of your feet, use a mirror or ask someone for help. Choosing the right shoes is also crucial. They should be comfortable and well-fitting, without causing pressure or friction. If possible, wear cotton socks, which help absorb sweat and keep the feet dry. And of course, avoid walking barefoot, even at home, to protect your feet from potential injuries. If, despite all these precautions, you notice something unusual about your feet, don't hesitate to seek medical help. Special treatment might be necessary to prevent more severe complications. Remember, the sooner a problem is identified, the easier it will be to treat. Maintaining blood sugar control is another essential factor in preventing diabetic foot. The better the diabetes control, the lower the chances of complications. This includes following the recommended diet, taking medications properly, and engaging in regular physical activity. Finally, it's important for friends and family to be aware of foot care for people with diabetes. Often, the support of these people makes a difference in preventing complications. Now, I want to emphasize something very important. You must never ever ignore when your blood sugar is high. This is serious, okay? When blood sugar levels are out of control, it's like your body is calling for help, and we need to respond to that call. Do you remember everything we've talked about so far? We've seen how high blood sugar can cause serious problems with the heart, eyes, kidneys, and even nerves. These complications are not minor, and the truth is, many times people don't give them the attention they need until it's too late. So, what I want you to take away from this video is the importance of always paying attention to the signals your body is giving you. Watch for signs of excessive tiredness, intense thirst, or frequent urination. Don't ignore if your vision starts to blur or if you feel pain in your feet. These are all signs that something might be wrong. And remember, if you notice any of these symptoms, don't wait to see what happens. Seek medical help as soon as possible. Diabetes is a condition that requires constant care, but the good news is that with the right actions, you can live well and healthy. In addition, continue taking care of your diet, engaging in physical activities, and of course, monitoring your blood sugar levels. These actions will make a difference in your life and help you avoid these emergencies. So never forget, high blood sugar is a red alert your body is giving you, and you should act quickly to avoid bigger problems. Being attentive to these signs and maintaining control is the best way to take care of your health and ensure you continue enjoying life without worries. If you liked this video, share this information with your loved ones, because taking care of health is everyone's responsibility. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep receiving upcoming content. Until next time, and remember, your health is your greatest treasure.